Franklin bought electrical equipment and began writing to European scientists. He learned to perform the usual tricks and made some up of his own. Once he gave an electrical picnic. He planned to kill a turkey by electrical shock, roast it in a container connected to electrical circuits on a fire lit by an electrical bottle. He was, however, so carried away by his performance in front of his guests that he was careless. He took the whole shock through his own arms and body and was knocked unconscious. When he came to, he was embarrassed. "What I meant to kill was a turkey," he said. "Instead, I almost killed a goose." His big idea was that electricity and lightning were the same. Up to that time, most people thought that lightning was and would always be as mysterious as heaven itself. And here was Franklin saying it was the same stuff that you saw in the parlor tricks, only on a grander scale. What was more, Franklin believed he could prove it. "Let a sentry box be built on top of a high tower," he wrote a scientist in Europe. "Put a pointed rod in the tower and let a man stand in the box during a storm." Franklin knew that electricity was attracted to pointed iron rods. If the man in the sentry box could find that lightning was also attracted to a rod, that would prove they were the same. The only reason Franklin didn't make the experiment himself was that Philadelphia didn't have a high enough tower or even a high enough hill. In the spring of 1752, 3 scientists in Europe tried the experiment, and all 3 proved that Franklin's big idea was right. But one scientist was killed, but that was because he was careless. Meanwhile, Benjamin thought of a way to prove the idea himself. One stormy day, he raised a kite with a long pointed wire at the tip and felt the electrical shock come through a key that he had tied to the kite string near his head. So he already had his own proof when the news reached him about the experiments in Europe. Still, he was surprised to hear how excited people were about this idea. He was suddenly famous. Indeed, he was becoming the most celebrated man in America. The King of France sent him congratulations. The Royal Society of England presented him with a medal. Universities gave him honors and called him Dr. Franklin. Newspapers praised him. Benjamin was pleased. He felt secretly as proud, he said, as a girl wearing a new pair of garters. A big idea, however, meant little to Benjamin Franklin unless he could put it to everyday use. So he invented the lightning rod, a pointed iron rod that could be raised from the roof of a house or a barn to attract lightning and lead it harmlessly through a wire and into the ground. For his own lightning rod, he also fixed up a contraption that would ring a bell in the house whenever the lightning hit, and Debbie, his wife, hated that bell. Benjamin would have liked to do nothing but experiment with his ideas, but people had discovered that he was more than an inventor. Whatever needed doing, he seemed able and willing to do it. He was made Postmaster General, and he organized a new system that only took 3 weeks instead of 6 weeks for a letter to go from Boston to Philadelphia. Later, he cut that time into 6 days. He helped organize a fire insurance company, a hospital, and an expedition to seek the Northwest Passage. And because he was so good at talking people into doing what he wanted them to do, in 1757 he was sent to London. He was to do what he could to further the interests of the people in Pennsylvania.